It's no surprise that with the current state of the world, most of us have gone into a state of depression, which is often reinforced by the poor work-life balance a lot of people lead. This often leads to escapism in the form of video games, movies, books, anime, or other medias. A particular genre that has exploded in popularity is the Isekai genre, or reincarnation, with numerous shows such as Re:Zero, Rising in the Shield Hero, Konosuba being the most popular. I think a lot of us, me included, sometimes wish we could start over from a certain point in our life with the current knowledge that we hold today. For example, majoring a different subject at university, not having asked that person out, or even investing in Bitcoin. God, I wish that was me. But what would you be prepared to do in order to restart your life? Would you have the conviction to die in order to go back? One of the best manhwa I've read lately is SSS-Class Revival Hunter, or more widely known as SSS-Class Suicide Hunter, or as the Korean name says it,
SSS-급 죽어야 사는 헌터.
The setting is one that is very commonly used in manhwa. A tower suddenly appeared in the world, so everyone did what everyone do when they see something weird and unexplicable show up. They went inside it to check it out. Inside, they discovered countless otherworldly monsters, and, as you guessed it, certain individuals were given skills that would let them combat and hunt these monsters. Our protagonist, the so-called Flame Emperor, is the classic solo person who manages to raid the boss by himself when a full guild of people couldn't. This is due to the fact that he controls fire, and we all know that fire is the best starter type in Pokemon. Our actual protagonist, Kim Gong-ja, is a lowly F-rank hunter that doesn't possess a single skill. He lives in a tiny apartment room while shitposting online about how much he wants to be like the Flame Emperor. He's pretty much obsessed with him to the point of taping all the newspaper articles about him on the wall. Eventually, this relentless lamenting and envy towards the Flame Emperor grants him a golden skill card, the highest card possible. Lady Luck has finally smiled upon him. Or so it would seem. The skill he got allows him to randomly copy one of the skills of the enemy that killed him a single time. However, he will die. The next day, after drinking all day and complaining about his luck, he happens to chance upon his idol. Mr. Super Idol is currently in the midst of confronting his girlfriend for planning to poison him. He eventually kills her and notices our protagonist fleeing from the scene. Naturally, our protagonist gets offed. His skill activates and he's able to choose one of the Super Idol's skill. Of course, he picks the golden one as it's the highest one he can choose. Upon picking the card, he wakes up to the previous day and examines the skill he got. He gets a card that allows him to return 24 hours in time from the moment of his death. His memories and experience points are kept intact, however there is a penalty according to the rank of the hunter. Having returned to before his death, he sets out to kill the Super Idol, but realizing that he will never be able to kill the Flame Emperor for good as he can regress as well, he jumps into the fire. He then sets out on his plan. Instead of going on a training arc and getting stronger and conquering the tower himself, he decides to kill himself 4,050 times in order to go back to before his idol got awakened as a hunter. You heard it correctly, he stabs himself 4,050 times just to go back in time out of sheer spite to kill the Flame Emperor. Now, is this the correct way to do things? One would argue that, like in the case of Hitler, going back in time to kill baby Hitler would just have someone as equally as bad replace him. But alas, he does it anyways. He comes back to pre-Flame Emperor days. He stalks him and formulated his perfect plan, which he might have killed himself a few dozen more times just to make sure. Eventually kills him off and goes off to celebrate. However, he still complains about the fact that he doesn't have a single combat skill, and by pure chance he runs into the current rank 1 hunter in this period, the Sword Saint, who has rumors about being a crazy old man as he keeps talking to himself. Being as greedy as he is, he decides to get killed by the old man in order to steal one of his skills. Unbeknownst to him, the Sword Saint mistakes him for an assassin trailing him and targeting him. This is due to one of the skills that the Sword Saint has that allows him to see how many people a person has murdered above someone's head. Kim Gong-ja tries to explain himself since he has only killed one person. However, it turns out that the number above his head is 4,091. His own deaths counted as murders since he killed himself. This paints him as a mass murderer of 4,091 in the Sword Saint's eyes. This means that every time he runs into the Sword Saint, he will try and murder him. Kim Gong-ja somehow manages to evade his attacks for a brief moment. The old man begins to ramble on and seems like he's talking with someone. Our protagonist thinks that this is telepathy and the Sword Saint is sharing information about him with other people. He taunts the Sword Saint in order to get killed before 24 hours passes so he doesn't become a wanted man. After getting killed, he once again is able to copy one of the killer's skills. Turns out that the Sword Saint possesses no S-rank skill and achieved rank 1 through sheer skill alone. He picks one of the 4 silver skills available and prays for an overpowered skill that is the secret to the old man's success. Upon waking up, he discovers that he's gotten an A+ passive skill. Thinking that it's lame that he got another passive, he turns around and discovers a red-haired ghost. Hilarity ensues as they try to explain to each other who they are. It turns out that the ghost is a martial legend from another world named the Sword Emperor, who cleared up to floor 99 but failed on floor 100. The Sword Emperor decides to trade him upon learning of his perseverance and talent to overcome the fear of death. They begin preparations for him to ascend through the tower by winning the lottery, because who else wouldn't, and jogging himself up. This is pretty much the training montage part, so I'll skip over a bit of what happens. During his training, he dies and discovers that monsters also have skills that he can copy. He's about to pick one randomly when the Sword Emperor tells him that he can see the cards freely. This is a huge buff, as he was only ever able to see the back of the cards, so the Sword Emperor being able to see the cards themselves means he doesn't have to rely on RNG and just pick the best one for him. Skipping over some funny moments and progress through the different floors of the tower, he ranks up to E-Class and decides to challenge floor 10. To give a brief overview of the boss room, this floor boss has hunters pick out a real doll amongst hundreds of fake dolls. If the hunter picks the wrong doll or takes too long, they die to the flames. He of course immediately dies to the boss and goes to his select a skill screen. This part is where the uniqueness of this manhwa story comes in. Naturally, someone would pick the highest skill card every time, in this case being a fire AoE of 2 km. However, upon sensing that something is wrong, he picks the silver card, which gives him immunity to fire. Upon picking the card, however, he returns 24 hours to the past, but not before a new pop-up appears. Since he's ranked up to E-Class, there's a penalty applied for picking the silver card. The penalty being that he has to relive through the trauma of the boss monster. I'm not gonna spoil too much and just say that it's quite a tragic backstory, and the way he overcomes it is definitely one of the most unique things about this manhwa. And thus he begins his upward climb throughout the floors of the tower, meeting new faces along the way, namely my wife. In my opinion, this is one of the best ongoing manhwa that's currently releasing. It has plenty of funny moments, epic action scenes, and heart-wrenching stories. Not to mention the development of the character itself, going from being a NEET in his room to some sort of hero and icon amongst the hunters, is something truly remarkable. This is amplified by the gorgeous art manhwa often has and the characters' expressions. I started reading this manhwa as a generic power fantasy, but was pleasantly surprised by discovering it has a lot more depth and creativity that stands out from the other typical reincarnation media I read. If somehow you got the ability to start your life over by killing yourself over thousands of times, would you? There are definitely moments that I wish I could redo in my life, but I probably won't do it anyways, because it turns me into who I am today and that's not so bad. But also because I'm a pussy.